this is very important when you sit in a project and you have a number of people working with the same assignment, that you have a good problem definition from the beginning. So you don't start working, but everyone in the group has a different view of what the problem looks like. That might cause a lot of problems and stall in the process. So, for example, air pollution is the problem. Explain why is it a problem. What is the public goods problem externally causing the environmental damage? And then we talk about usually that air is a public good that everyone uses, and if you degrade that, the air quality, it will affect everyone. And the action is that, in the terms its externalities, that the one who does it doesn't have to take that into account into the decision making. So some industry is releasing pollutants in the water that eventually reaches the sea and affects the fish population, decreasing the landings of fish. That polluter doesn't have to take that, that cost doesn't appear at the polluter side. If it did, he would probably take action. If it doesn't, he has no incentives to take an action to reduce that effect, because the cost is taken by someone else. Describe who is affected by the problem. Well, in this case, it was the fishermen. It might also be everyone going for recreational fishing, people eating the fish full of toxics, health effects. Last point here, describe the extent of the problem. Is it a local problem? Is it only this little lake that is affected? Is it the regional, the Baltic Sea or the Black Sea? Well, maybe that should be in, I see my computer. What we know in this case will probably be like a bigger region within a country, because then it comes to national problems. That is a problem for the whole nation. And then we have, of course, global problems. I would say you have certain problems between that. Like the Black Sea and the Baltic Sea and the Mediterranean is shared by a number of countries. So it's a problem for those countries. They need to come together to solve it. Climate also is a global problem. And it is important to have the scale so you can kind of circle in where you need to focus. And how many people are affected by the problem. When it comes to climate, most of us are affected. Maybe more the future generations, the young people of today, than the old people. Questions on that? I know that you talked about within some section the problem tree, where you looked into effect, connected to your problem and the causes. And I'm going to extend this a little and use problem description that is growing very much in Europe and also in other nations. And actually everything produced within the EEA, European Environmental Agency in Copenhagen, describe the problems in this framework, and it's called the DIPSI framework, where the letter stands for driving forces, pressures, state, impacts, responses. This is an easy way to get a whole overall picture of the problem, where you can see in a group where maybe you have different angles to the problems. But driving forces are the socioeconomic and sociocultural forces driving human activities, which increase and mitigate pressures on the environment. It might be that we use transportation, we grow crops, we mine after minerals, and so on. And that leads to different pressures, that stresses that human activities place on the environment. For example, wastewater, fragmentation of the environment, nutrition loads to the seas, etc. I mean, those stresses have an effect on the state of the environment. Like the greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, the primary production in the lakes, the mercury content in groundwater, the ozone layer, etc. There's the state of the environment, the condition of the environment. And the condition of the environment will have impacts back to the society. The impacts of the environmental degradation, for example, biodiversity loss. Economic damages is then the fish stock is reduced. You can't eat the fish because it's full of mercury. Or that the recreational value of going to national park is lower because you have windmills or there's some arts that are disappearing and so on. And then you have the responses. What are we doing to deal with this problem? And the responses can target either the driving forces, saying you have to drive less. It can focus on the pressures. It can also focus on the state of the environment. We have responses saying that the state of the environment must be this high. Or we have measures saying that, well, one way of dealing with eutrophication might be to oxidize bottoms when you're focusing on the state. And you might also look into the impacts. And one case is, for example, the oil spill. When it has happened, the state is ruined. Well, you take measures to reduce the impact. You compensate those that are affected. BP had to pay a large sum of money to people around the Mexican Gulf due to the accident there in 2010, I think it was. Any questions on this? I have another picture that also describe it, and I have some copies here that I can hand out. This gives a little more in depth what it means, but it's a very useful tool to create a picture of the problem and have a good problem description when you start working in the next steps. So, now here's an example that we did for different problems in the Baltic Sea. Actually, you should probably have each. We had each a dipser for eutrophication or fish and oil spills, but here we just summarized them, how you can think about it. And I have those as handouts as well, and you can look at it. There's another. No, why did the assignment go? Okay, I have an assignment there. Because what I want you to do now is form yourself in groups of 4 people, maybe 4 or 5. Pick a problem area. And think now that to make it easy, pick an environmental problem area, like something specific, whether it's water quality, heavy metals, air pollution,